Hi there, welcome to the Fierce Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Lindholm. And I think it's time for us women to shift the conversation in business and step into our feminine leadership to do the most iconic work the aesthetic industry has ever seen. Each week, I'll be bringing a powerful dose of strategy, sarcasm, solutions, and sass that will rev up your creativity and ignite your brilliance as you link arms with me along our shared path of personal and professional growth in 20 minutes or less. Let's go. Well, hello, Fierce Factor. I can still not believe it's October already. Has this not been the fastest, slowest year ever? Like in complete shock. Oh my. I wanted to talk to you today about something that I call unapologetic ambition. Because lately I've been doing some high growth work with a new client. So I wanted to create this episode about some of the things that we're working through and to share my thoughts around these unpredictable, but really not uncommon challenges that we have worked through together and we're working on. And it's my hope that by sharing the story with you, that you find some comfort in knowing that your goals, your ambitions, your dreams, they're not only acceptable and valid, but they're in fact vital. And you don't ever need to apologize for that. So a couple weeks ago, I released an episode called Think Bigger. I think it was episode 22, essentially a manifesto for shifting perspective to create abundance from a new source, seeking a new elevation in life, so to speak. Now, if you haven't had a chance to listen to that episode, please go back and check that one out. I share a lot of insight really into the fundamental mindset work that I do with my private clients to help them really visualize a 10x more abundant future in order to live and make decisions from the place of their future self, the business leader that they intend to become through our work together and well beyond. And, essentially, my point behind that episode is that in order to achieve bigger, you must first think bigger. And I want you to go through that episode because it's going to have a lot to do with what I'm going to talk about today and the psychology essentially behind business. And really one of these core mindset shifts that we talk about is rooted in a principal choice. So we basically have two options as we set out to grow our business and life. And one is we can set out to achieve the thing that will make us happy. So I want to make $10 million as an example. Or option two is we can set out to become the person who is capable of making $10 million again and again and again and again. And these are very two different approaches to achievement of our goals. Now, one path is significantly more challenging than the other because it requires you to honestly evaluate and intentionally change the way you think, essentially changing habits that you've created that have made you who you are. I mean, they've constructed or augmented your DNA. And let me tell you, the harder road is the road less traveled. In my opinion, from my personal experience, I believe this is why many small businesses, most really small businesses in our industry fail. It's because they rely too much on the mechanics without investing enough into the psychology. You see, if we think of our business like a Ferrari, all of the systems work together synergistically to keep running at high performance. So think of your mind in your business as the steering wheel of the car. It's a small piece of the total machinery, but it's the thing that gets you to where you want to go. Without it, the systems will run, but then eventually will crash and burn. So why am I sharing all this with you? Okay, I do have a point. Well, if you haven't noticed, running your business and life isn't as easy as just turning on an ignition. There are going to be bumps and turns and rocky roads. And this is really what our past client went through. And we helped her navigate through some of the same challenges that I am working with another client on now. And this is why I wanted to kind of share this story with you. So I'm going to tell you about Dr. T. So this is our client who made a really big investment in space and team and marketing. When she called me, she was certainly ready to take her business to the next level. She wanted to add another zero to her annual revenue. She was very ambitious and really excited for growth opportunity. Now, she's a brilliant feminine wellness and lifestyle physician, she calls herself, and she'd built a really strong organic referral business and is a notable thought leader in her space. But when she called me, she was ready to take her business to another level. Why? Well, she noticed a lot of Me Too businesses popping up, is what she called them. And patients were coming to her basically already misinformed and, in her opinion, compromising their own results by choosing subpar providers. So maybe you can relate to her experience. Perhaps you know that your value deep inside, you know with absolute certainty you can provide optimal outcomes and an unforgettable experience, but your market feels too saturated, really, to even elevate your voice without contributing to the noise. In fact, I remember when I met with Dr. T, one of our first meetings, she said to me, I know that I have a stronger patient following, a more loyal clientele, and I provide exceptional experience for patients while they're here, but so-and-so has a bigger Instagram following, and they appear to be a thought leader, and it's challenging for the average woman to discern between fame and quality. So Dr. T had challenges ultimately that had nothing to do with tactics. It had to do with her mindset and her belief in her own agency. Remember, your position in the market is a dance, and you are the leader. You have agency over how you show up. Well, my fierce friend, it's time to stand for something. It's time for you to stop thinking about what's wrong out there, and it's time to step up and lead unapologetically. And it was time for Dr. T to take a position that didn't allow these incredible women seeking her high-end comprehensive care to get pulled into a subpar system. These patients needed her, but this conversation really needed to grow legs. So the first order of business was to redesign her messaging. Now, she was marketing to a more problem-aware market, meaning they knew they had a problem. They knew that they were looking for a solution to really symptoms they were having, fatigue or dark under eye circles. And so they're really just looking for the most convenient solution possible. So what the heck, Dr. Instagram, right? So they were left to their own devices, essentially seeking out a Band-Aid rather than a solution to the problem. And this really frustrated her, and understandably. So what we needed to do was elevate her message. She told me she had patients coming in that had been misdiagnosed or had complications from other doctors that they had been to, or they had just been simply misinformed. And so Dr. T really needed to step up as a true thought leader, not just in clinical white papers, but in her market presence to prospective patients. She needed a differentiated voice that would set her apart in a sea of sameness. But we ran into one major problem. She was worried about rocking the boat. She was concerned she would alienate or expose her colleagues. By the way, this took some serious unpacking to reveal that these were deep concerns of hers. But she essentially had impostor syndrome and felt like, who am I to make this bold move, to grow my business, to write that book, to educate the market when there are experts who have been at this for 20 years ahead of me? So here's a classic case of a bright, cherry red Ferrari speeding down the highway and then halting the brakes because there's another car over there in the other lane. Remember, a few minutes ago, I talked to you about that psychology piece of business. Dr. T had already overcome major struggles to achieve the level of success she had. She had the team, she had put the operations in place, she had the clinical prowess, but she was holding herself back, and quite frankly, at the detriment of her patients and her community, by apologizing for believing in herself through the fear of disrupting the status quo. So we moved swiftly into action and made some power tweaks to her brand messaging, her marketing strategy, and more importantly, and most importantly, I should say, to her perspective as a CEO. And she truly has blossomed as a leader in not just her business, but also in her peer groups. She's brought insight and ingenuity that has elevated conversation, and she is doing deeply satisfying, iconic work, but she had to get out of her own head. Look, I sat in a boardroom in corporate America for a lot of years, and I know what it feels like to have a voice in your head that's only heard by a party of one. But I also know how liberating it felt for me, similar to Dr. T, to voice my thoughts and change the narrative around topics that were important to me. And I know that you're here because you're an ambitious and talented professional who's ready to get that voice out of your head and onto a platform that can illuminate your unique gifts. Perhaps you're like Dr. T. You're ready to unleash yourself and you're looking for that right partner to guide you in the right direction to truly achieve preeminence in your field. And if that's you, I'd love the opportunity to help you answer your ambition unapologetically. If you're ready to separate from the pack once and for all, we can work together to truly reveal your incredible story and come up with thoughtful ways to amplify your message in the market. You deserve it. You are worthy. And I know that you're not here. You didn't just come across this podcast by accident. You're here for a reason, and you deserve to live with unapologetic ambition. Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Fierce Factor. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure you subscribe so you can automatically get new shows every week. I'd also love it if you left us a review. And come join the conversation online. If you're an aesthetic industry owner, operator, or leader, please join my free Facebook group, The Tribe of Fierce Aesthetic Leaders, a community of ambitious, purpose-driven professionals who collaborate and share best practices for growth in business and life. I'm honored you tuned in.